Okay. And we're like, oh, look at him. He's already. Can you see
Justin, you
what's going
drinking?
on with you?
Justin, you drinking coffee?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It looks like Max Headroom. Do you have the Max Headroom effect on?
No, I don't. Do I look weird?
Yeah,
I'm
your screen is really flickering big time.
I'm having a cocktail poolside.
Are you wait, Pepino? Are you talking about my screen or Mangini's?
Yours.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
flickering. You look like Max Headroom. You're like, "Brr, brr, 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 brr." You
It's still.
sound fine though.
Oh, okay. I don't. Yeah, I don't know how I'm doing that, but sounds
Yeah,
kind of cool.
and no, it looks kind of cool. I was actually wondering if I need to put one of those caption, those warnings like they do in video games. Like this might give you vertigo.
Hold
Pepino,
on.
you gonna give us your classic opening?
I mean, I normally don't do it on the streams, but like, yeah, we could do it. Yo, 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 what is up, my fallopian tuber Cesario for the Mario coming back at you with another video for your butt. That today we got Dustin, the sports card dad. We got John Mangini. Mangini, where are you at? You look like you're in the Yucatan.
I'm gonna cook out on poolside right now with some palm trees here in South Carolina. Beautiful freaking day. Beautiful. If it was any nicer, I'd think I died.
John looks like he's in a music video.
I wish I had some musical skill. I couldn't carry a tune with a suitcase.
Well, we have
What
that.
you
We have
drinking there,
that in
Dustin?
common.
You got
for
some.
sure.
You got some coffee.
I
going
should
on,
say I
Dustin?
couldn't carry a tune with a Pelican case.
What'd you say, Pepino?
What do you got? You drinking some coffee right now? Or you just waking up?
I'm trying to. So my son and I are going to. There's a new movie with Russell Crowe called like The Pope's Exorcist or The Pope's Exorcism. My wife's Catholic. She's from Italy, so she'd be very upset that we're going to see that. It's the sacrilege. But yeah, we're gonna go see that at 7:15. And then Jeremy Sports Cards Live is doing like his 3-year celebration thing tonight. And he picked 11 p.m. for me to come on and like say hello or whatever. So I was like, I gotta get some. I don't stay up very late, so yeah.
I did not know your wife was from Italy. I like you better now.
Yeah, she was born and raised in Florence. She's from
nice.
Italy. Yeah,
Florence is my favorite place in the whole world. I absolutely love Florence. Love it.
nice. Yeah, she's from Impruneta. Is kind of like a suburb of Florence. It's like, well, you know how Europe is. I mean, it's just like it's like tons of little small towns, and then Florence is obviously like the city, but there's all sorts of little towns all over the place. And she's in kind of like a town that overlooks the Duomo and all that stuff. It's cool.
Yeah, in the square there, they have La Croce Cathedral. And in there, they have the tombs of Dante, Galileo, Da Vinci,
The
and
Ninja
somebody
Turtles?
else. Is it
Are you naming
Michelangelo?
all the Ninja Turtles?
The Ninja Turtles are all there.
You guys, you always got to slum it down.
Hey, but credit to you, Dustin. I think this is the first time I've heard of somebody with Italian roots not saying they're from Sicily. I think that's the very first time right there.
Yeah, I guess that's true. There are a lot of Italian Americans from Sicily for sure. Yeah, definitely.
That's where the good limoncello is from.
Yeah, the South.
That's like the #1 producer of lemon, Sicily.
Oh, okay. Yeah, now I'm drawing a blank on where. We could get into the whole family tree, but that would take up probably the whole stream. But yeah, so my wife's grandparents, the grandfathers from the north, and the grandmothers from the south. So there's a whole division about. It's just funny how tribal it is wherever you go. It's kind of like in India. Depending on where you're from in India, they hate each other. It could be like one state over. It's kind of similar in Italy, where like the north is too good for the south, and blah blah blah.
Yeah, and the funny thing is the different dialects for such a small country. Yeah. Every little region has a certain dialect that's a little bit different.
Yeah, it's wild. But
all right, so I don't know. Do we start talking hobby? I thought you were going to be at home, John. I'm going to see some of your stuff.
Yeah. Do you have all your cards with you, John?
Well, I'll tell you what, I wasn't home, and when you reached out and said Dustin was going live, I was like, I'm not going to miss this. I'll just jump on wherever I am. So I just left the gym and came over for a cookout. So
Yeah.
we could talk a little hobby. That your last live stream was interesting. The guy you had on, he's seemed like a smart guy.
Oh
I
yeah.
enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's an interesting channel, Reserved Investments. And I thought he'd be interesting to bring on because he's kind of all collectibles, all different styles of collectibles and antiques, and I know you're into antiques as well, John. I don't know about you, Pepino, but yeah, he's an interesting guy because he does kind of track a lot of these really niche markets. So that's a good channel.
Yeah, he made a lot of good points. I enjoyed it.
I love antiquing. I mean, I'm not high end, so I don't got anything fancy, but thrift store,
I'm not
antique
either.
store, all the time.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Antique stores is usually where you find, or at least for me, where I find like deals that I'm not gonna find at a collector's place. You know what I mean?
Yeah. In the old days, man, it was fun to go to antique stores. You'd find a lot of baseball stuff, a lot of sports related stuff, a lot of cards. And oftentimes, it was just somebody, they grabbed somebody's estate or something like that. So it wasn't the hobby boom, and you could pick them up for, good prices.
Yeah. Do you go to estate sales and those sorts of things, or is that stuff because of the boom? Is it all just kind of overpriced compared to what it used to be? Because people are just aware now that people want cards.
I don't go to estate sales, but what I've found with after the boom and since you see it on TV and it got the popularity is people reach out to me constantly. Hey, my friend has cards. What are they worth? And I'll be like, well, what does he have? Stuff from the 80s, and
Yeah.
they just expect you to give them a price or tell them per card what they're worth, that kind of thing.
Well,
And it gets a little frustrating. And the other thing is. The other thing is everybody wants to know what your collection's worth, what your card's worth. If somebody comes over, that's the first thing. What's your most expensive card? What's this room worth?
That's one of the things, though. In right, you could correct me if I'm wrong, because I probably am. But in the antique world, to qualify for an antique, pretty much vintage, right, is 25 years old. I believe so. So people might apply that with cards, So 90s are vintage to them.
Yeah, I don't know. I think in cars, isn't it 20 years is a classic, 30 years is an antique? I think in cars.
I'm assuming everybody has their own definition, right? What's the definition for cards? A lot of people say 1980.
Well, no, but you can get plates. Like you can get special plates, like antique plates.
Yeah, but that's
antique
a government
plates you can only drive on Sunday. I'm just saying, technically, I think that's what it is.
God, it's going to be a sad day when Beavis and Butthead is considered vintage.
I think they already are, dude.
That's rough. That is rough.
It's amazing. So that who's that young superstar for the up and coming player for the Cardinals? What's his name?
Walker.
Oh man, I just ordered some of his cards.
Which one? Kyler Murray? Is football or baseball?
No, baseball.
No, Walker.
That short. Yeah. So I was just seeing today, he was he was born in 2002. And I showed cards I pulled from a pack from 2001 on my earlier video. And I'm thinking this dude was born a year after I pulled these cards. And to me, those cards seem new, right? They're like modern cards. And that's how old I am now. So it's a different world. So yeah, when you talk about like vintage cards, in the old days, the cutoff was 1978. That's what they considered it. But nowadays, I mean, we're so far along now that, 1990s vintage to some people.
Right.
Might not be worth much, but it's still vintage.
Yeah, my daughter's
so I don't know if maybe in the hobby we kind of classify, or at least in my head, that's what I do, is I classify those as eras. Like there was a vintage era, the classic era, the boom era, whatever, the steroid era. Like, I think of it as eras, and sometimes I like to think anything before this was vintage. And then maybe before that you have pre-war, It's like kind of like eras that we categorize things.
I know in the old days, Beckett and everybody classified 1978 was a cutoff. That was like the last vintage year. And I always thought it should be a little later than that myself, but that's what they used to consider it. I think that may have changed now. I don't know. I hear guys say 1974. Everybody has their own definition.
Yeah.
What year what timetable did they really start upping print runs? Was it the 70s, like late 70s or 80s when they really started to ramp it up, like 1980?
Yeah, I mean, really, when you get into the 70s, there's certainly no shortage of those cards, right? I mean, not, somebody that thinks 1974, for instance, I mean, you can go on and get any 1974 card you want by the tens, by the dozens, right?
Yeah.
So there's been high print runs for a long time. When you're in the 60s, you have the third series. The third series would come out. People were already getting into football. Baseball cards were like an afterthought. Maybe kids were going back to school. They didn't have, we used to walk to the store every day in the summer, grab whatever change we could get. So the third series, in the 60s, some of the 72s when it really expanded to 700 and some cards. I forget the total number.
Right.
So the high numbers were a little more scarce because just people didn't buy them as much. I don't think they printed as many. And it's interesting. They carry a good premium. Some of those, like you look at the Pepino, you'll know the 67 Grant Jackson rookie card. Now, Grant Jackson played for my Pirates. He was a good pitcher. He played for the Orioles. But his rookie card goes for a fortune because it was a high number short print, right?
Yeah.
And some of those cards, some of those players, they just had a cup of coffee. They had 5 at bats, and they'll still sell for a decent amount of money.
I think that's we could talk about this. That's what adds to the allure of the 52 Topps Mickey Mantle. All right, and John, I saw that you had purchased a card from that new, what is it, Topps set 2020, whatever it is. What's the new one called? Topps 100?
Oh yeah, the new one where they have they're like artwork in the style of the 52 Topps.
Yeah, and I saw you had
some of them have a piece of gum like imprinted on the back that are short prints.
Okay.
Right, but the legend with the 52 Topps Mickey Mantle, why it's kind of adds to the legend of the Holy Grail. Do you believe the story about them dumping because it was the last series and they weren't selling, that they dumped them into the river?
I'll be honest with you. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if it's true, but I've never believed that story.
Right. And when did you first hear that story? Do you remember?
A long time ago, but I have a baseball card book from the 70s, and it is all Cy Berger being interviewed. And, he doesn't say that in that book. He tells the story about the Maury Wills and why that card wasn't.
Why he didn't get a rookie card?
Yeah, until 67, because so if you don't know the story, he used to go to spring training, and he would ask the coaches who are the up and coming rookies, who's going to make the team. And I think Maury Wills, wasn't he in Detroit's camp? I think originally, the Tigers, I think. And so he was asking the coaches, and they said he wasn't going to make the team. So he didn't sign him. He signed everybody else. And Maury Wills held a grudge and wouldn't sign with Topps till 1967. And then he would give like $25 to these guys to sign them. And later on, it was only like $75 in the 70s. But he called it stake money. And that's kind of where the phrase stake money came from. He'd say, go buy yourself a stake. And he'd give them $25 to sign them. And then it got to the point where they wanted to sign. They wanted to be on a baseball card. So it kind of sold itself. But he was very intricately involved in all the spring trainings and knowing from the coaches what rookies were going to make the team.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. That came up because when Topps did those Turn Back the Clocks, they made a fake card of them that never existed.
Yeah, one of the reasons I don't believe that story is because if you look at the pop reports on that card, it's similar to the Willie Mays card. I mean, it's not rare. It's not extremely less printed. There's not a less of a pop, much less than any other card, right?
All right. You know the story, right? Between the 52 Topps Mickey Mantle series got thrown in the river.
Yeah, dumped in the Hudson.
Yeah, when was the first time you heard that story? Who or where? What source did you get for that?
I think I probably just heard it over the last couple of years, but I don't know where I heard that. I don't know where I heard that from. But I am a little bit skeptical because I feel like I do feel like so much of the hobby is narrative driven. So this would be like a perfect narrative, to prices, So I don't know unless there's actual proof of it. I just kind of I've heard it like you guys have heard it.
And the other story people don't believe, and it's true, is that Honus Wagner didn't, want to promote tobacco because in his 49 leaf card, he has a big side chewing. Well, Honus Wagner definitely used tobacco, but
Yeah,
his thing
he
was
smoked.
he did not want to promote it to children, and that's
Right.
why he had them pull
Yeah.
the T206. And if you look, he has a Colgan's chip, he has a Philadelphia Caramel, he has gum cards, he has candy cards. He's just not on any tobacco products whatsoever, and so I
Yeah, but
believe that story.
Yeah, that makes sense. How come? Well, and I guess John, all those other cards that are the non-tobacco stuff, they carry, from what I know, and tell me if I'm wrong, they carry a far less premium than obviously like the T206 tobacco card does. Why is that?
It's the opposite.
Oh, is it the other way?
Yeah, I mean, if you go and you try to find like a Wee Willie Keeler in an e-card, those things sell for a fortune, or Eddie Plank. The e-cards are more scarce. The
Oh, I'm
T206s,
talking about
you
just
could
just
find
the
all
Honus
over.
Wagner.
Oh, I'm
Just the
sorry.
Honus
I'm
Wagner.
sorry. Yeah, of course, the Honus Wagner is, I think there's only 70 some in existence, and many of them are cut in half or trimmed or not in great condition.
Hmm.
I'm sorry. I thought you meant in general the T206s versus the e-cards.
Yeah, it's interesting.
That's my holy grail card. I mean, if you gave me the 52 Mano and the T206 Honus Wagner, to me all day it's the Honus Wagner.
Now, do you have a 52 Topps Mano, John?
No, I regrettably would never pay the price. I've always found that to be the single most overpriced card in the hobby, and it's always been, comparatively speaking, right? Like it's always been, comparatively speaking, overpriced for all other cards. And when I started collecting, it's not like I had a lot of money, so I would seek out the bargains, and go for the cards I liked the best.
well,
And
you know,
so
one of the things
it's just not something I ever
do remember,
pursued.
John, is in one of your first earlier videos, and you were kind of timing with Blue Jacket 66, and both of you guys had that question asked you in separate videos, and you answered in separate times, but both of you guys answered, I want the 52 Topps Mickey Mantle. I would love to have it, but I feel it's over. And I'm talking about before the boom. I'm talking about 5 years ago, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Both of you guys said, I love that card. I love Mickey Mantle, but that card in general, just looking at the card itself, is overpriced.
Well,
Like,
Pepino,
I
how
do not
many
know
other
why it costs
cards
that
could you
much.
have for the same amount of money? You had a 4 and you sold it for $80,000. How many phenomenal cards? How many Babe Ruths and Ty Cobbs could you buy? And Honus Wagner. You could buy several $10,000 Babe Ruths, like
That's kind of
fantastic rare cards. That
That's
52 Mano, anytime you want to spend the money, you can find one. There's probably 30 of them on eBay right now. They're at every auction. So anytime you want to spend the money. So Dave and I, we like the more scarce, the rarer stuff, the stuff that doesn't come up every day. And so for me, I'd rather, find those rare gems. But if I
Yeah,
wanted to spend 80 grand or 60 grand, I could buy one. I could find one, no problem. And that's not the case with some of the rare ones we collect.
yeah. I don't know, man. I think the reason more people love Mickey Mantle more than everybody else, because people love the person, as opposed when you like Ty Cobb
Yeah.
or whoever, you like the player. Mickey
Oh, I
Mantle
get
has
it.
a personal attachment.
I
love
get
Mickey
it. And it's the 52 Topps. It's the first Topps. Well, it's not
Well,
the
you know
first
what?
Top set.
Let
It's
me
the third
go.
Top set, but
Yeah.
it's the first big
Let me
Topps
tell you,
baseball set.
the first time I heard that story, the Mickey Mantle story, Hudson River, was in a show that had nothing to do with baseball cards. I don't know if you guys ever seen it. It was that series. It was a lot of series, but they talked about they were trying to bust myths about like the other hobbies. Like, you remember the Atari game E.T.? It was a massive failure, and forever people said they dumped the rest of those that they couldn't sell. They dumped them into a landfill, and Atari denied it for decades. Totally denied it. And then like two guys did some crazy investigation,
There's a documentary on
and they
that.
found it. They
Yeah,
found
yeah,
it.
yeah.
And that was like a big myth that they busted. And it was in one of those shows where they had like a little brief thing, like that was a side note. Oh, and then 52 Topps dumped the remaining cards into the river. And that was the first time I'd ever heard that story. So I didn't hear it from a baseball card guy or baseball. I heard it. It was a side note on a show about myths, that are true.
Yeah, I mean, it could be true. It wouldn't surprise me if it was true. I'm not saying it's definitely not true. I've just always doubted it, but people doubted there were UFOs, and now the Pentagon says they exist. So you never know.
Yeah, when
Yeah,
you got
oh yeah,
when,
and there's
when
weather
fighter
balloons.
pilots, when fighter pilots are talking about it, then it's like, okay, I'm starting to take it a little bit more seriously. You know,
You know
these
what? You
guys
know
are
what blew my mind, Dustin? It was like it was during COVID, and there was all this crazy news. And when they announced that, no one even cared. It's like if it was 5 years earlier and the government admitted there were UFOs, there would be pandemonium, right? Everybody would be talking about it.
yeah.
Nobody even talked about it. When you would go to a party or drink with somebody, nobody even brought it up. Like it just flew by everybody. Nobody even cares. I found that
Yeah.
funny.
The stuff that's considered newsworthy over the fact that there could be UFOs in today's world is amazing.
I know, right? I
Yeah, right.
know.
I'd rather know what
The
Kim
card
Kardashian's
boom
wearing today.
made more news.
Yeah, seriously.
So
Hey, so
I
Dustin,
was talking about the first top set. Dustin, do you know what the first top set was? A lot of people don't, so I'm asking.
To be honest, for baseball, I thought that the 52 tops was the first one. I thought that was kind of why it's so valuable because it
Well,
was.
the first baseball only set was actually the 51 redback, blueback, little game cards. But the
I
first
don't. This
top
is not a
set,
set.
well, it is. I mean, why
No,
not?
because it's a card game.
But that was the first baseball cards they issued,
Yeah, but it was
and
a
the
card
first
game.
cards they made.
Okay,
That,
well,
come on,
yeah, you
Pepino,
could
that's
argue that,
ridiculous.
but
They're
okay,
baseball cards.
52, that's the thing. People say that all the time and argue that. People say 52 is not the first set. It's I never heard anybody claim to be it is the first set. It's supposed to be the first modern set where it had the stats in the back, where it had
Yeah, I mean it's
that's
the
what it is.
first. Yeah, it's the first prototype kind of
Yeah,
Topps
exactly.
baseball card set.
That's what
But
it
they
is.
issued a multi-sport set in 1948, the 48 Magic Photos, and they had baseball greats: Babe Ruth, Ty Cobb, Lou Gehrig, and then they had boxers
Yeah.
and they
Oh,
had
but
some actors, I think. But the
yeah,
48
it
is
wasn't a
actually
baseball set.
their first their first cards.
Oh,
And
okay.
those were little magic. They were called magic photo. You spit on them, and they developed like a photograph.
Wow.
And they were
Wow,
small.
I find that offensive.
Like a tiny little Polaroid.
Right. Well, you know, over the years they had several of those. The first ones I remember, well, okay, so there were the Photo Fun cards. Those are scarce. Pepino, do you remember what year those were? They were
No,
in
I
the
think just Mikey
30s.
actually just made a video about those too. I
And
forgot
then
what
there
year
was
they.
the 1930 Rayo prints, and it came with a little thing to develop them.
Wow.
So that was another one. They messed around with these over the years, and then the 33 Tattoo Orbit. They included these, and these are very scarce too. The Dizzy Dean's a great card, very hard to find. I have two of them, but I've always wanted that Dizzy Dean. But a lot of times they don't develop fully, and so the image is very, very faint. And I just won't pay up for that. Like I want a nice, crisp-looking ones that's fully developed. But those are very scarce. All the and the Hocus Pocus too. So they gave a number of runs at those kinds of cards. You know, they're not the most beautiful looking things. However, the 48 Topps Magic Photos, in my opinion, are the nicest looking, and they developed really well. The Babe Ruth is phenomenal. The Lou Gehrig, the Ty Cobb, they're great looking cards. And there's a really cool Tinker and Evers card. It's really a great card. So you might want to check that set out. Anybody that's watching it that's never seen it before.
Yeah, that's interesting. And all the kind of the oddball sets are really cool. I didn't know anything about those until right now.
Now we don't call them oddball. They're all cards.
Okay. All these beautiful sets that no one is aware of. There we go.
Hey, Dustin, so when did you start your channel? Like, what era did you come in to YouTube exactly?
I came in the second that the pandemic hit the shores of the United States, March 2020. No, I'm just kidding. But basically, yeah, it was the pandemic hit. You know, we were all kind of at home, and I had been talking about starting my YouTube channel for months, and then finally there was just kind of no excuse. It was like, okay, I'm working from home now, and you know, I have nothing better to do but to start up. So I got started.
So coming in at that time that you did, what was the first channels that you came across or see?
The first channels, I did see some of the collector channels. I probably did see some of your guys' stuff because I did search just sports cards, and so I went through a bunch of different things. I did see Jeff Wilson. I did see Sports Card Investor come through. He started, I think, in like August.
Uh-oh, guys, I might have to go. I think my wife's getting a little tipsy.
That's
Oh,
all right. That's all
one
right.
bottle of wine down already by myself.
The big bottle.
Have fun.
So he started, I think, in like July, August of 19, sometime around there. And then, there was channels like PSA Collector, that would pop up. Really, I would say those two channels were hitting my feed the most. And before I got onto YouTube for sports cards, the only time I ever got on YouTube was to look up how to fix the toilet or whatever. I didn't use it at all.
Right, me too.
So I didn't have any sort of, I didn't understand how the algorithm worked or any of that. So that was just the stuff that kind of hit my feed. And there was the one thing that I did like about Jeff Wilson's channel going back to 2019 was he was talking about just like different hobby topics, news type stuff, just kind of like the stuff you'd think of off the top of your head and then talk about it, throw it out there, make a video. And so that was the style of stuff that I wanted to make, where it was just like some random thing that happens in the hobby news world, or something that I'm collecting or buying or whatever, and maybe some of it being flip content as well. Back during that time, I mean, I say it now, like that was probably the easiest time in the history of the world to flip cards was 2019 to 2021. I mean, it was
definitely was.
So it was just all the easy money flowing around. So I thought I could make videos about just I bought this, I sold this, whatever. So yeah, I mean, it was. I wouldn't say there was some master plan. It was just kind of like I thought it was something interesting, and it was also just an outlet as well. Just something like I'm already kind of in the hobby. I'm into cards. I'm into various collectibles. Why not make content about it? And it's kind of an outlet for me a creative outlet, because I'm not very creative, honestly, outside of like this channel. So yeah, I thought it would be kind of fun.
John, when did you get in? Like, what was one of the first things you were watching, or how did you come across it?
To be honest, I started making videos before I ever knew that there were card videos on here. I never once went on to YouTube. I'm like Dustin. I went on to learn how to fix stuff. I had no idea there were people on here showing baseball cards, because it seemed to me initially that like Facebook, Instagram, those kinds of things were a better venue for that, because baseball cards are pictures, and you could zoom in, you can enlarge, it just seemed more sense to me to look at pictures. So I didn't even think to go onto YouTube to look at sports cards, to be honest with you. So I made and uploaded sports cards as an afterthought from my Facebook page. I just figured I'd throw some on there and see what happens. And I had no idea there was a community. So I'm kind of the opposite of most people. Like, a lot of people watch them and then decide to make a video. I was oblivious, because I always collected in obscurity, really.
Yeah.
Until YouTube. Nobody knew who I was. Nobody knew what I had. I had friends when I was a little kid, and we used to flip and go buy cards, and my family knew, but nobody else did.
You know what I was thinking about today? Because one of my brother-in-laws just lost his job. Like, the company's going under, so he's got to interview, whatever, start over again. And I was thinking about that. I was like, I wonder if I had an interview. I said, because I've always collected in obscurity too. I've never really had any friends that collect. I collected by myself pretty much my whole life. But one thing when I was in my early 20s, I mean, I had a lot of jobs. Like, I did a lot of interviews. Every single interview that I remember, they always ask you, do you have any hobbies? You know what I mean? And for decades, I'd always say baseball cards. Nobody cared. I always feel like, I bet you if I get that question now and I say I collect baseball cards, they're going to ask me like, oh, what's your most expensive something? Because more people know about it in the mainstream now.
I used to kind of be embarrassed to tell people I collected baseball cards, because a lot of people look down on it like it's a childhood hobby, right?
Yeah.
I remember a friend of mine going, "A grown man collecting baseball cards. What's wrong with you?" And when the boom happened and cards started selling for $12 million, I started sending them articles. Yeah. How you like me now, dude?
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And I'm cards, but it's all the like 80s, 90s nostalgia stuff. So I've got, video games and comic books and all the stuff. So I'm just basically a giant nerd. I talk mostly about cards, but I love all the different varieties of collectibles. It's all fun.
Yeah, it's just so funny since the boom because people used to look at you sideways like you were weird when you had cards. I remember people when I first built my card room. It was before the boom. Cards they weren't selling for very much back in like 2014. And so when I took them all out of storage and made my card room, people come over. Oh, that's cool. That's interesting. Like nobody cares. Now they come in and they're like, oh wow, they can't wait to see it. Because all of a sudden it's cool. It's like collecting art. Art collectors have always been well respected, right? And now I think sports card collectors are now respected in the same regard.
It has to do with everybody knows art is worth money, and now everybody thinks all baseball cards are worth money.
Well,
You know what I mean?
what is kind of bothersome to me as a collector is the emphasis on money. Now, I understand we all want our cards to be worth something. If we spend money on them, we certainly want to be able to get something out of them. And should we need to sell or should our families need to sell? Of course, but the emphasis has been taken away from, I have this scarce Eddie Plank. Well, no one gives a shit. All they care about is what it's worth, right? So that kind of bothers me. That's one of the problems I had when the Jeff Wilsons of the world came into our hobby and hijacked it. And I see this moron paying $10,000 for a box of 1988 Fleer basketball cards we used to not be able to give away. I opened many of them. Yeah. They're all off-centered and everything. And then he and another guy are opening them with latex freaking gloves and sending them all into PSA and getting 7s and 8s back out of them that you can't sell for jack. And everybody's jumping on this bandwagon like this is what you're supposed to do. And how many young people are racking up their credit cards thinking that this is a good idea? And it triggered me because he just had more money than brains, and it's fine. It's his money, but like those kinds of things started to affect the hobby that Pepino and I love as collectors, and it started to get outrageous. And then we have to pay up for stupid cards that we used to be able to pick a dollar for. Now, they're on eBay. I just saw 1989 Ken Griffey Jr. in a Beckett 8 and another 89. These are common rookies and a 9, which all those cards are 8s, 9s, 10s for $699 for 2 of them. Those cards were $10 cards 3 years ago. Just ridiculous.
Yeah, there is kind of a lifestyles of the rich and famous type, view. I mean, like YouTube, if you really take a look at the stuff that really gets big views right now, it's, I bought a $10,000 card. I traded it for a $50,000 card. I mean, that's the stuff that generates the views. And I get a lot of crap for like, oh, this is a, clickbait type topic or whatever. But I mean, I could easily be doing that. I guess I could just do that.
Yeah, Dustin, and you know what? I watch these guys. They claim this in their heading, right? I flipped this for 10,000, and then they show videos of themselves at the card show. They don't show a video of them actually buying. Like sometimes they'll show them buying. They never show themselves selling, and it's like, are we just supposed to take your word for it? And I don't believe them. And then you have these people that were paying, like they were charging $75 for their advice on, betting on football, right? I'll tell you what to buy. I'll give you this advice, $75 a month. You buy a membership. I haven't seen a single video from one of their patrons coming on and saying, I made a killing. Listen to these guys. I made a killing taking their advice. Not a single video. I don't know if you have, but it's a bunch of hype and people got burned from it. They got hurt by it. Have you seen what Luka cards are selling for now?
Yeah, well, it's I think it's going to be a tough off season for Luka cards for sure.
Yeah, but we're not. Those who don't embrace change are destined, to perish.
Absolutely.
That's the way it goes. If you're trying to be big on YouTube, it's about your views. Some people want to do the views and things. But it's about, a lot of it is about the person himself behind the camera. It doesn't necessarily have to be the product they're producing or,
Absolutely.
promoting.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think like backyard breaks, they used to do something else. And then to them, baseball cards were like, hey, well, this is hot. Let's try our hand in this. And they got
Yeah,
hot.
right.
Because people love that personality. They're not necessarily the most honest breakers or whatever, but they're very popular. And that's why people are
Yeah,
attracted to
it's-
it. There's
it's
a
entertaining.
Well,
personality.
you know, initially there was a big backlash from collectors. You know, we felt like the hobby was being hijacked by posers, guys that just got into the hobby. It's like, you know, like Jeff Wilson saying it's the hobby we all love. Well, he didn't start loving it until it was a boom. He worked in a card shop for one day, got fired, and had cards from the 90s, 80s, and 90s, just like everybody. Everybody on Craigslist has cards in their garage stacked up from the 80s and 90s. That doesn't mean you love cards. You started to love them in 2020 when they were worth something. You know what I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
it wasn't genuine.
Well,
It's
yeah,
not genuine. All these guys loved cards all these years. No, they didn't.
just observation wise, like say people that are newer or come back. Like when I first got on YouTube, whatever, 6, 7 years ago, it seemed like everybody that was on here got back into the hobby. Like there was a vast majority of people who hadn't collected for like 10 years, like since high school or college, and they got back into it, but they got back into it because cards were cheap. They're like, oh my God, I couldn't afford this Jose Canseco rookie back in 1992, and now I can afford it. Like, oh, I couldn't afford this Roger Clemens rookie, now I can. It seemed like that was the majority. So it was a different time and era, and that's what I was attracted to. Like, that was me. Like, yes, I can't believe these cards are this cheap now. We
But
love the
Pino, when I
price.
got back
We
in,
love that the prices were cheap.
yeah,
But after
I'm
2020,
the same way.
most people got into it because of how much money they can make. It's just a
Would you like
different
a
era. Like,
burger?
we can all get
Hot dog?
along.
They're gonna put one on the grill for you.
I could have
Do
another
like
drink.
another. Okay. Why don't we do that?
Don't give them any more. Cut them off.
Where is my wife to get me a drink? What's going on?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm
She's out of
Italian,
town. She's
and
out
I
of
love
town.
Italian women, but you know, I didn't want to marry one because they'll stab you in your sleep if you piss them off.
Yeah, she's
My
a wild.
mom, I mean, when you grow up with an Italian mom, man, they spoil the hell out of you.
Oh, yeah.
I was a campaign manager for a guy running for judge, and he was Italian, and man, his wife would iron his underwear for him. I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
man, you were spoiled rotten.
Oh, I see all of that. Yeah, it's funny because the way that they mom to girls compared to their boys, like our sons, it's like they can do no wrong. It's like you said, like they've got their underwear ironed. Daughters, it's totally different. But I mean, still great, but just different. And
Yeah, my mom, like, I could bring you guys over at midnight, right? And my mom will get out of bed and go, "Come on, you're gonna eat something."
yeah,
And she'll start cooking. And
Everybody's
you're like,
starving.
"No, we don't
Yeah.
want anything." Yeah, you're eating. Like, if you don't eat at my mom's house, she takes it as a personal offense.
Oh yeah, no, I know all about it, man. My father-in-law lives in Florence. He barely speaks any English. When he comes to the U.S., all he does, because he doesn't speak very much English, so he just cooks the whole time because he just
Yeah.
wants to be busy. And you eat every damn thing that he makes. I mean, and he makes just a truckload of food. I literally, like, he'll come over for a couple of months. I gain like 25 pounds, and not really, but I gain a ton of weight, and then I just have to like intermittent fast it off. You know, like
Yeah.
I basically just like eat enough so that I can conserve for weeks. It's
My
incredible.
my mom bakes a lot, and they had these things, and you can't find them anymore. But they were making 1952 rice, that rice film that goes on top of cookies. They were making
Okay.
1952 Topps baseball cards. And so I ordered some. I'm like, Mom, you got to make these. And I sent them out to a few people, like Dave Blue Jacket 66, right? He has everything. He has one of the, just a phenomenal collection worth of absolute fortune, right? And so I reached out to him. I was like, I've finally found something I can send you, something for the man who has everything. And I sent him a 52 Mickey Mantle cookie.
Oh, did you say Blue Jacket 66?
Yeah.
He put a mean comment on one of my videos a few days ago.
Oh, did he?
I was like, damn, dude, because I actually recognized the channel name, and I was like, man, that kind of stung me a little bit. I like your stuff. But yeah, he said
Well,
something-
if you think I got triggered by the modern flippers and investment types, he's way worse than me even.
yeah.
He's been a long time hobby since he was a kid. His father was a pioneer in the 70s, go to shows, had Satchel Paige at his house. And this really, really triggered him because he is a purist like I am. So I wouldn't take it too personally though. When you're
Oh,
on YouTube, you know,
well, like you said,
open up.
I've got a fiery Italian wife. You think I can't handle some comments?
Oh
Hey,
man, I've gotten some doozies of comments, especially when I said something not kissing up to Sports Card Investor. Oh my God, people are like, you're old and poor, and he's rich, and you're a loser, and I'm like, you don't know what I have. You don't know what he has.
Yeah. Oh, well, you saw I got a guy telling me I'm getting divorced. I didn't even realize it. I'm like,
oh, dude, that guy triggered me, man. He was so mean. Like those were personal attacks, right? They weren't even like coming down on you for your content or anything. Like you're going to go out there, even if it's true, even if it was true, and say that kind of crap. I had to come to your defense on that one.
well, it's just people looking for attention. I get it. I understand the game. I understand it.
Yeah, you know, I mean, social media can bring out like just horribleness in some people. And God forbid you give your opinion.
Comments.
Yeah, I mean, God forbid you give your opinion on some. And you know, baseball fans are the absolute worst. I've been saying it for years. Because you say somebody belongs in the Hall of Fame and they don't agree. Oh my God, they want you dead. You know, or you say like, hey, Bill Mazeroski was the greatest defensive second baseman who ever played. He deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And watch the backlash of all the people that will tell me how stupid I am.
Yeah.
You know?
I know I'm the nobody when it comes to baseball knowledge. And I have a semi-hot take. I don't know how hot it is anymore, but I really feel like guys like Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds and, you know, kind of the steroid era folks should get kind of a pass. I'm not saying that they should be put on a pedestal or anything, but especially Barry Bonds. Like, I feel like Barry Bonds is a guy that probably would have got the Hall of Fame before he ever took anything. Yeah. You know, like maybe they make an exception for him. I don't know. But maybe they feel like if they make an exception for him, then they got to make exceptions for others. And I don't know.
Well, you know, I mean, there should be a steroid era wing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the thing is you can't compare eras, right? Like now they have bases the size of the tires on my car. And so can you compare the stolen compare the stolen base numbers moving forward now with past stolen base numbers? You know, stuff like that. Like every era is different. You know, in Mickey Mantle's day, they drank a lot. I don't know. And then
Coke
you know,
in the 80s,
is,
Greenies in the 70s, you know.
Yeah,
well, Greenies.
Yeah. So how about post DH, right? Albert Pujols got 5 or 6 years to pad his numbers as a DH. So you know, when you want to talk about that, is it any different? I don't know. Like steroids, maybe they let you play a little longer. Maybe they let you heal a little longer. Maybe they let you sneak some balls out of the ballpark that wouldn't otherwise go. But the DH kind of did a lot to compete with guys from the 60s and 50s and 40s as far as home runs and longevity. Yeah. So every era is different. In the early days of baseball, pitchers could scuff the ball. They would do it intentionally. They would dirty it. They would spit on it with tobacco juice. So, you know, should we not let them in the hall because they cheated? But everybody did it. And so to your point, Pepino, everybody did that in that era, right?
Yeah.
Everybody did it. So if you're going to let anybody in, you kind of have to let them all in my opinion, because just, you know, I mean, there's probably a lot of people they don't know of or even suspect that did do them. It's like in the 80s, like Dave Parker, they won't let in the Hall of Fame because it was the cocaine era. Well, everybody was doing cocaine in the 80s. How many people were at those trials?
Yeah.
Well,
and those are only the people they caught.
Yeah, no, like when I first started working at Dodger Stadium, there was this older security guard who had been working there forever. And one time we went out and he had this old ass Mercedes-Benz, beat to hell, old ass Mercedes-Benz. And like when we got in it, we were making fun of it. He's like, hey, it's not funny. He's like, man, I thought the 80s were gonna last forever. He's I was selling coke to all the players and I was making so much money. He's like, I bought this car cash, brand new. And he's you know, and then that era died, and he's like, oh, I'm just
well, did you ever watch the show? I think it was on CNBC. I think it was called Cocaine Cowboys, and it was a story of those guys that used to run. So he was telling the story. One in the 70s when the Steelers were a dynasty. He said that they were out partying in Miami. The Super Bowl was there, and he said the whole front line of the Pittsburgh Steelers were up doing blow with them until like 5 a.m. 5 or 6 in the morning, and he looked at them. He said, "Don't you guys have a Super Bowl to play?" And they're like, "Yes, and we're going to win it too." And they went out and won the Super Bowl. They went straight to the freaking game.
Wow.
So should we? Where do you draw the line? Because I always say,
I think you would play worse. I think you would play worse though.
But it's not the good guy Hall of Fame. Otherwise, there'd only be 10 people in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's the baseball Hall of Fame. It's the football Hall of Fame.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's a big argument whether Pete Rose should be in, whether Shooting Joe Jackson should be in.
See, to me, Pete Rose, if he was betting against his team and fixing the games, then that would be a bigger problem for me. That would be a very big problem. But to bet on your team, even though I know he shouldn't have been betting at all, but to bet on your team, I don't see anything morally wrong with that.
Yeah, it seems like an innocent thing that you're just you're hoping for your team to win and you're betting on your team to win. You're putting your money where your bat is.
Right. And a lot of people would disagree with me, and that's fine. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. But, like I said, if he was fixing games and betting against himself, like the 1919 Black Sox or something, then that's a different story.
I'm going to change the subject real quick because we're talking about Dave Jacket Blue 66. Like, trip on this. So, like, he gave me this book at the National, right? It was mint. Like, it has stamps. Like the sticker books today, these are stamps. All right. And every one is in perfect condition, and then you put them in these slots, for their spaces in this whole book. So this is the Brooklyn Dodgers. I mean, it has Sandy Koufax. The book was like, man, he was like, tell me, look, he's no imperfections, perfect. And there was another YouTuber. He's like, hey, let me see it, and he's looking at it. And he's looking at it, and you just see it fall. Boom, right? It's falling to the ground. And then he catches it with his two hands, slaps it, holds it in half, basically trying to catch it from hitting the floor.
Oh no!
So now, I mean, you probably won't be able to see it, but now it has this like big old giant crease, coming down the middle.
Yeah.
Like, it's cool.
I hate when something gets lost in the mail. I ordered a rare Ernie Lombardi card, Signal Oil. Very hard to find in good condition, and this one was in great condition. And it got lost in the mail. Like, the guy reached out to me, and it showed that it was delivered. And the same day it showed it was delivered, he reached out to me, and he's like, "You didn't get this, right?" Like, he said, "I got this card back in the mail destroyed, and I don't know why it's saying it was delivered to you." And he gave me a refund. But to see a rare card like that in good condition get destroyed is so heartbreaking. And how many times does that happen in the modern era of sending things in the mail, that it just gets lost? Or like that, sometimes you damage it. And these guys that use tape or don't, I get cards still wrapped in freaking paper towels, loose. I got one the other day. Thank God it arrived in great condition. But I was like, who sends a card this way in this day and age? Like, anything could happen to it.
I get paranoid too, just watching. Just like on YouTube or wherever, where people carry like their Pelican cases through the airport and like security's got to go through it. I'm like, I'd be sweating bullets if I had huge money in a Pelican case trying to travel with it on a plane. I don't know how they do it.
I only go to card shows I can drive to because I don't want to have to take any cards on a plane.
Yeah.
I'm just a little paranoid about that. I don't know why. But guys, listen, if I want to stay married, I think I have to go enjoy this party a little bit with my wife. This was awesome. I did not want to miss it with you, Dustin. I wanted to jump on.
Let's do it again.
Yeah, and I'm having some cocktails, so I might have got a little riled up, and my opinions get a little more boisterous when I'm drinking a little bit.
Hey,
but it's all in good fun and good intent.
It is. All right. Good seeing you, man.
All right. Thanks, Pepino.
Late. All right. Dusty, you sticking around for a couple minutes?
I've got about 15 minutes, if that's okay with you.
That's perfect. All right, let's just talk about other hobbies. I know you collect other things than cards you were mentioning earlier. So do I. I mean, I'm probably not as heavily into you, but like as you are into some other things. But what else do you collect?
So I've got, like I said, it's kind of the 80s, 90s nostalgia stuff. So I've got like starting lineups. I've got Atari games that are in box. I've got, like I really like the original black box NES games, the original Nintendo games. So I've got some of those I do have some that are graded, just really for preservation more than anything else. And then I've got graded comic books and comic books. Yeah, I've got quite a few different. Oh, I've got do you remember Mad Balls from the 80s?
Yeah, man. Mine's are always all peeled up and scraped up.
Yeah. There's some that are still in the box. I'd like to have a couple that are in the box. Obviously, they're more expensive buying them like in the box from the 80s, but I would like to have a couple of those. I haven't gotten them yet, but yeah, the Mad Balls.
What does that go for? A Mad Ball still in the box?
In the box. So I've got a buddy. I've got a buddy that buys that stuff by like the truckload. And he offered me
That's amazing that you can find that.
Right. Yeah. And that's part of the reason why I'm not in a huge hurry, because this guy finds them. He's still finding, like, I don't know if he's got these KB toys, like liquidations, like underground, kind of like what you're talking about with like the ET game. Is there like Toys R Us warehouses all over the place? We just don't know.
Yeah. That happened. Are you familiar with the 1974 Topps Giant set? There's these Topps cards that are big. They're just oversized.
Yeah.
I mean, the cards themselves aren't that important, but they were considered rare. You know what I mean? Back in the day. And then, like, one day out of nowhere, somebody found his warehouse just full of pallets of unopened packs of these 74 Topps Giants. And so their value went down, like, oh, they're actually not that rare. You know what I mean? Like, you can't foresee that. You know what I mean? Yeah. But some dude actually found like a warehouse with pallets full of them.
I think one thing I've learned is don't underestimate the hoarders out there. Don't underestimate them, because they're out there and they've got their stuff. And kind of like what you guys were talking about, a lot of people collect and hoard, so to speak, in isolation. So it's not as if they're on YouTube, like, hey, I've got pallets of this or that. They're just doing it they're just doing it on their own. They're just enjoying their stuff. So yeah, that's it's very interesting. But what about you? What are the other collectibles that you have?
Like, I mean, the only thing I really currently collect is really pretty much baseball cards. But let's say like Star Wars, I still have like Star Wars things that I have since I was a kid.
I remember that case.
And most of these are like 77s. The original one, they all fell off. The little straps to hold them in place are gone. But
I had a buddy with that exact case.
Yeah, a lot of these are like 77s. You know what I mean? The Princess Leia, the Luke Skywalkers and stuff, So these are pretty cool. A lot of people get mad because I have them, like in this thing. But they don't have this case doesn't have those strips to hold them in place. Every time I open them.
Oh, did I lose you? Did I lose you, Caesar? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
So like, say this whole box right here is like, I got them all separated. Like, these are all, the clone troopers.
Oh, nice. Clone troopers.
I got the Jabba the Hutts. Like I have, these are all just loose, opened up Star Wars figures. Yeah, this whole thing is, I could, so I have that, like, I have a couple of Funko Pops. These are like a couple of my favorites. I don't know if you're familiar with Clockwork Orange.
Oh, yeah.
This is one of my faves. Bender, my favorite alcoholic, animated character, stuff like that. Anything when it comes to even unopened wax pack, I'll have stuff like Elvis, Mork and Mindy, Pac-Man, I have a bunch of everything. King Kong, there's King Kong, the Raleigh Fingers, a bunch of old basketball. But yeah, I collected all. Like in my top on my ceiling, I don't know. I have like Pez, starting lineups, Hot Wheels. There's really. Oh, you couldn't see it?
Yeah, I saw it.
So
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that Michael Jordan, it was pretty much pristine, and I bought a new fan, and I turned on the fan, and bam, the fan smacked it, broke it, fell on the ground. But yeah, bobbleheads, records, comic books. I these two boxes right here are all comic books. Actually, one of them has a lot of Playboys. That's like a thing because I bought a bunch of Playboy binders.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, I don't have any Playboys to put in it. And I went back to the guy that sold me. He's like, oh, and he sold me like 100 Playboys so I could stuff my binders for like really cheap.
Did that box say Mad? Were those Mad magazines?
Yeah, I have a lot of Mad magazines too.
Yeah, those were awesome. I remember those back in the. What? Do they still make Mad magazine? I feel like they still make those. No,
I'm not really sure. I've seen like every once in a while. I've seen like the anniversary kind of issues, but I never see like the monthly ones anymore. Maybe you can still get them in the mail, but I don't see them.
I was just thinking too. It's not like we're ever really like in the magazine section at the grocery store. Like we're on the internet. You know, we're not in the, you know, like looking at magazines in the grocery store or whatever.
Yeah, like when I was a kid, that was a big hangout with 7-Eleven, because 7-Eleven used to have a magazine, you know, rack. So they had magazines, they had arcade games, you know what I mean? They had all the baseball price guides and stuff. So it was a big hangout at the 7-Eleven when I was a kid.
Yeah, we used to go down.
I mean, I do have a lot of like unopened boxes. Like this is a 87 O-Pee-Chee. These are all O-Pee-Chee. Man, they're all dusty. I also got like say an open box of the Return of the Jedi. These are all these are all unopened packs.
Damn, that's cool.
So yeah, I mean, I collect it all. You know, everything is a hobby to me.
That's awesome, man.
So that's what else do you collect? Also, I collect records, also vinyl, but I don't have any of them in here.
Oh, I think part of my problem is I've been
doing frozen.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, my internet is a little bit shaky. I'm gonna have to get one of those Ethernet cables and connect it in because I've been having some issues with StreamYard. Yeah, I've been going through and just kind of consolidating some of my stuff, selling off certain things, like basically looking at like what do I really love and what's the stuff that I could live without, so that I can buy other things. And so I've been kind of consolidating some of the stuff that like cards that maybe I just am like, I'm not in love with it, so I'll just kind of move off of it. So yeah, but as far as what I'm collecting now, it is really just kind of I've been looking at. Do you remember? Action figures from the 80s, obviously Thundercats, is one. Like the in-box stuff is really expensive to find, but I like the Masters of the Universe. I've got, I actually have two of these, but Mossman, this is from like 1985, but Mossman's so awesome because he's actually got like fur, it's got like actual fur. They don't make them like this anymore, so some of the old Masters of the Universe, but there's also these, I think it's called like Beast Masters, or they're smaller. They're like this big and they're little like Rhino. It's like I can't remember. It's like Battle. I'd have to look it up, but
yeah, it was just basically the other He-Man. Every cartoon back had their
version
or whatever.
So a lot of like the 80s action figure stuff, I'm just kind of looking through that. I'm looking to see if there's any kind of hidden gems on eBay. I've been keeping my eye out for that stuff.
You have an action figure like this? This is a Dennis Rodman action figure.
That's cool. No, I don't. I've never even seen that one. So that's from the 90s, obviously, with his Bulls uni. Yeah, that's awesome, man.
It comes with two heads with two different color wigs, and it comes with a bunch of stuff.
Where do you find that stuff at like Goodwill or garage sales, or what's like? Where do you have success finding that sort of stuff?
Majority of that stuff, I ended up buying like that place Frankensons right here by it's 10 minutes away from where I live.
That. Oh, okay.
So they have like 2 rows. Say they have altogether, I don't know how many, 30 rows, 50 rows, but 2 rows are like baseball cards, and there'll be like 10 rows of Pokemon, a row of records. Like they have everything there, and they have a bunch of people that have just a bunch of mixed stuff. And when I first started going there was a lot of older dealers, and a lot of them have just passed away because it's been so long. But they always had this stuff for like dirt cheap. Nothing that I had was expensive. I mean, it may be now, but like back then, like say, this Return of the Jedi, like, I got this for $5, this whole box. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the O-Pee-Chee, I actually bought not that long ago from one of them. Because he had to share opinion. Say, that's the thing when you talked about to the older people and they still have the same mentality from the 70s and the 60s, you know, like this guy had the same mentality as I did. Like to me, I was like, I don't really like Opeachy that much. It's a generic tops, you know, and you know, you know, I had that for $10. You know what I mean? Things like that. But those days are gone. But yeah, I do go to the thrift stores a lot, but it's hard pressed to find anything for cheap anymore because now they also look it up on their phone. They'll Google the item, you know, so it's hard to get
Yeah.
anything dirt cheap anymore.
So what do you do with stuff that, because I remember you saying you're not really much of a seller, right? Not really.
No.
So like you have your room there that's got your collectibles in it. What do you end up having to, like, say you get something new and you want to post it up in there? What do you do with the stuff that you move out of that slot?
About every year, right after Christmas, like New Year resolution thing, I'll buy a giant tote and I'll remove about a tote, fill up that tote and put it in my garage. So in my garage, I have 3 big old totes, and then in my other my wife's like gym, I have another giant tote that I remove all my full. Yeah, did
All
you
right.
hear me? Were you able to hear
Yeah,
me?
yeah. I heard that you have three giant totes in your wife's gym. So she works out with the totes. Is that what it is? She's like lifting them.
No, they're like big. They're actually like huge things with wheels on them.
Wow, man. That's
Yeah,
cool though.
so yeah, I mean, there's no yeah, like eventually I'm gonna have to sell some stuff just for the room. You know what I mean? Because yeah, it's getting pretty hectic now.
Cool, man. It's cool. Yeah, I mean, I get it. It's kind of like buying memories and just putting them on your shelf, you know, and when you look at it, it makes you think about different times. So that's what it is
Yeah,
for me anyway.
well, one of the things you get around this hobby is like that's just me. Like, okay, I don't sell anything. I don't think any less of people who sell cards or
Oh, yeah,
flip.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's like just a
Yeah.
difference of opinion. A lot of I don't know if there's like before you were saying. I remember you saying in your older videos like uh pedestal collectors. You know, so I'm assuming there was other people who don't sell or whatever, thinking like posing their stuff into you, like, well, if you sell, you're just this, and you're just that. I don't it's like, but I don't care if you sell. You know what I mean? It's just my thing. Eventually, I will. I always say, eventually, I'm going to sell some of my stuff. Just not
Yeah.
now. You know, I don't feel the need to.
Well, I think too, I got a lot of flack because I came in kind of during that 2020 boom when a lot of new content creators came in, and then we all got kind of lumped into one bucket. And this is how like these people are kind of. And I just felt like I wasn't like I'm my own person with my own deal, my own journey, and they're there. Yeah, like everyone's got their own thing. So yeah, it was just kind of my way of pushing back against some of those that maybe lumped me in with other people. That's it though.
Yeah, exactly. I get lumped in with other people too. But yeah, I mean, 2020 was pretty wild. I mean, you know, I remember the whole year from beginning to start. Uh, Everybody was panicking, saying, "Oh, card prices are just going to be zero." Everybody was scared that the cards are going to be
Yeah.
worthless. I was like, "Hey, that's good. I'm gonna be able to buy some cards for cheap," you know. And oh, it was surprising, you know. Once the stimulus checks started coming, cards were going up. We're like, "How is this happening? Nobody's working. How is the card prices going up?" But hey, you know,
Yeah.
something I didn't understand, but I understood that that's the way it was.
I think it's going to continue on downward for some, you know, obviously like 52 tops manholes and stuff are in their own class, but just cards as a whole, collectibles as a whole, I think you just nailed it right there. It's just there's a lot of money that flowed into the economy and people spent it where they spent it. And some of it went to collectibles.
Yeah, you
So,
know, one of the things baseball collector used to say, you know, pre-boom, he used to always say, there's only so much money in the hobby. There's only so much money in the hobby. You know, that's why prices aren't climbing, the prices are steady. That, you know, there's only so much money in the hobby. But when 2020 came, millions got pumped into the hobby. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So that changed everything. Literally
Yeah.
millions. One person was bringing over $1 million, you know? So
Yeah, there was cards when I got back in 2018. I mean, I bought cards, but I bought at kind of a pace that was comfortable. I wasn't in a rush because just looking at it over 2018, I was like, these cards don't move much in price. Like, I don't need to rush to buy these cards because the price points are pretty consistent. And then, like you said, like I was like fall of 2019 and then into 2020, and then it went bananas. But yeah, I mean, I wasn't in a big hurry rush to buy the stuff because it was like, it's just going to be there, you know?
yeah.
And then
Just
it
think
wasn't.
things will stay the same.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm with you too, to where it's like, I'm not
Okay,
going to be
you're
sad
freezing.
for, oh, did I lose you? Hold on.
You're freezing out. Your voice is freezing out.
All right. I'm
Yeah,
back.
a little bit.
Can you hear me? Oh man. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. We should probably end it pretty soon, Caesar, because I'm on my internet's on life support. I don't know if my AOL floppy disk is starting to rattle in there. So
All right, cool. Hey, I'm gonna show you this card. You know whose dog this is?
whose is it?
Sasha T's.
Is it really?
Yeah, when I was at the Burbank card show, I remember I was with Mike Monahan, baseball collector, and he was looking at some of Sasha T's cards. Sasha T was by himself. I can't believe there was nobody at his table. Then about half an hour later, G's Mikey walked over there and there was nobody there. So he started talking to him. And then he had these cards, like a pile of these cards on him. I was like, hey, is that your dog? And then the dog would like walked up and I was like, oh, it is your dog, you know? And then he said, oh yeah, man. He's like, you want one? And I'm like, okay, yeah. And so this is Sasha T's dog. I think.
Is that a custom card or is it an actual Bowman card?
Yeah, it's like a custom from Topps Bowman.
But I mean, Topps manufactured it, or he had it made type thing.
No, I'm sure he had it made probably.
Okay.
Have you ever made one of these?
No, I've never done that. I didn't. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. But all right, we'll end it on that note.
Yeah, we'll end it on Sasha T's dog. Well, Caesar, thanks for having me, buddy. Let's do it again soon, man.
Yeah, man. All right.
All right.
People just keep collecting baseball cards forever. As I said, oh, thanks for coming on.
All right.
Ready?
Stay well.
All right, you too.
See ya.